Blind SQL injection is one of the most used attack in today's world. So let's see what is blind SQL injection. So blind SQL injection is one type of SQL injection attack in which we ask the database a true-false question, and based on the response of the database, we determine whether the answer is true or false. So the difference between blind SQL injection and SQL injection is, in normal SQL injection, the database shows the error message in the front end or web page and gives enough information to find out how the query is working, even sometimes show what is the query. So using that, we can prepare our SQL payload and inject it. But in blind SQL injection, the database does not show the error message in the front end or web page. Instead, it shows a other error page like 404 page or the user is not found, something like this. But it does not show the database error message directly. Instead, it filtered it and only show the information that is required to show the user. And there the role of blind SQL injection come. We use blind SQL injection to ask the database true-false questions, and based on that, we try to exploit the database. There are basically two types of blind SQL injection. One is content-based and another is time-based. In content-based blind SQL injection, we prepare a payload and inject it. Basically, it is a true-false approach. So we prepare a payload which will ask the database a true-false question, and based on the response or behavior of the website, we decide whether the answer is true or false. But in time-based blind SQL injection, we prepare a payload accordingly so that if the answer of the database is true, the response will be shown in a time delay, whatever time we give, like 30 seconds, 20 seconds, the response will be shown to us in every time delay. But if the response is false, then it will show us immediately. Now let's move to the practical of blind SQL injection. So we're going to practice the practical of it in the WebGoat vulnerable web application. So if you don't know how to install WebGoat, then go and watch my previous video. There I show you how to install WebGoat on Linux. Now let's move forward and let's see what is the task here. So we have to log in as Tom. So first of all, let's try some SQL query and try if it's working or not. Quotation mark or 1 equals to 1 and put a random password. Hit on login. No result matched. Now let's try something on this register page. Hit on register. Okay, this is not working. So it told us to log in as Tom. So we can use your Tom, and after that try to register. So it is showing that the user is already exist. So this field is vulnerable as it take the SQL query that I provide. Means we can try the blind SQL injection here. So I'm going to use content-based blind SQL injection to figure out the password. And substring. After that is starting bracket. Password. So here password indicates to the password field. So basically the password field of user Tom 1. So here the 1 indicates that the first index of the password. After that again 1. So this one indicates that we have to take only one letter from the first index. Means suppose that the string is password. The password that is stored in the database is password. So if you are using 1 and 1, that means the index from the start we have to take only one letter. So if I change this to 2, then we'll take 2 letters like P and A and so on. After that a equals sign. After that any letter which we think that will be the first letter of the password. I think it's T, so I'll enter T. After that we'll give the credential. Now hit register now. So it is still showing error. So I figure out the error. Actually I forgot to give a starting quote here, but we don't need to give a closing quote, and I described it in my previous SQL injection video. You can go and watch it if you don't know. Now hit on register now. So it is showing that user is already exist. Means the first letter of the password is T, which is true statement. That's why it returns this error. Otherwise it will don't give this error if that statement is not true. To find the full password, we will use brute force technique. For that we will use a tool named as burp suite. So open the terminal and type command burp suite. So the burp suite will start. So we have to intercept the request in order to capture the request that is sending to login, and we have to prepare a brute force attack through that. So I'm going to on the interception here, and after that go back to the page, and here put the payload and other credential accordingly and hit on register. Now let's go back to the group suite and find the request that contain the credential. So here is the packet, here is the request which contains the credential. Send this to the intruder. So here we're going to make some changes. So first of all, this %2c which is written here, this represents the comma, and after that in the first position we're going to change the 1 to 2 because now we need to brute force the second letter of the password, and in the place of T we're going to add this double quote because we're going to brute force this place. We're going to try different letters here and we'll send the request. So I'm going to change the name guess letter. Now go to the payload section and choose the payload. So in the payload type choose brute force, and I'm going to remove these numbers because I only want alphabets, and change the maximum length and minimum length to 1. Now we are ready to perform the attack. Now click on start attack. So the attack is successfully completed. Now if I click on the request, then I can check which letter is used for the brute force, in this case 1, and also we can view the response which is showing that the login page is successfully the user is successfully created. So this is not the response we want. But if you notice one other thing, which is the length of the response. So all the response that is sent by the servers, their length is same, means each response contains this same content. So we're going to find out a response that has a different length from this because that packet will contain the success. So I'm going to place it in a descending order, and here is the first packet. So as you can see, here is the response that we want. User is already exist, so means H is the second letter of the password. So we have to do this thing in a loop so that we can find out the complete password. You just have to change the position of the password. Instead of 2, we have to change it to 3 and start the attack again in the same process. And by doing this process again and again, you will find the full length password.